Okay, Oakden. I say, hey Jake, can you explain how RLUSD works with XRP and how that relates to price appreciation? Understand is RLUSD won't be a retail stablecoin value density. How can you explain RLUSD work with XRP and how it relates to price appreciation? Okay, so I'm sure you've heard this terminology before. It's called liquidity begets liquidity. So you have to have a way to be able to drive liquidity into something, and then after enough liquidity moves into it, there's a gravity to whatever it is. I read Steve Schwarzman's book. He was the head of Blackstone, and when they first got that going, they raised the first ever $1 billion fund, and most people told him that he couldn't do it, and but once they had that base and they gained traction in the market and they had success with their products, now they manage trillions of dollars, right? But you have to get that initial liquidity in there. RLUSD is the initial liquidity on the XRPL. It is a showcase and a standard for how people can issue stablecoins on the XRPL and have that be interoperable with XRP in order to be able to settle. I'll be on the, is it the node? What is this? Hold on. I'll be on a live tomorrow on Twitter with NodeNet. So those two guys that just interviewed Mikkel, I'll be on tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. So if you guys want to check that out. But, in that conversation, I'm sure that we'll come across, this exact topic. And, is Ripple trying to pivot away from XRP? They seem like they're selling XRP and using that to fund their business. All those things are true. XRP is the Trojan horse. It's behind the scenes. You have to have your way in the door. Like, you got to get through the gates with the XRP in the back there. And then once you're in there, then you can start utilizing it. So RLUSD is kind of like that piece. It allows them to get traction with other counterparties. It also brings in-house a portion of their business that they were outsourcing for years. Ripple was using USDT for ODL. And that was true up until 2024 when they launched RLUSD. I was at CoinAlts in 2023 and asked Brad about ODL, and that's what he said. We use Tether in some capacity alongside XRP, and now they have their own stablecoin, so they've stopped use of Tether. But anyway, all that to say, you have to get liquidity into the blockchain. You have to be able to drive liquidity into the token before it can be valuable enough to use. And then once it sits as the intermediary in the exchange and the DEX between all those stable coins, because they're all issued on the XRPL